Vlad RMC is a chosen man gifted with a system but gets thrown away by his father to the slums just like me and you behind that screen. But don't worry, we have baddies with a good story to enjoy while we can be losers together. But our boy Vlad is sent to the slums of this village where he was to fight every day to stay alive and climb to the top. Even though he is Yahello, he has a childhood friend with him that alongside him with his journey. But the story starts off with, in the dead of a snowy night, a lone fortress stands tall against the starry sky. But below, in the darkness and ruins, a voice speaks of being stuck in a gutter, unseen by the world. Amidst a pile of rubble and debris, something begins to stir, shifting the wreckage from below. A hand suddenly bursts forth from the debris, reaching out from the darkness. From the wreckage emerges Vlad, a young man with blonde hair. He pushes himself up, his hand firmly gripping the hilt of his sword. With a guttural cry, his eyes glow with an intense, blue light, burning with a fierce determination that pushes past the pain and despair. Vlad rises to his feet, wielding a massive greatsword. He stands determined, ready to face whatever comes next. The scene shifts to a quaint town, its rooftops covered in snow under a beautiful, star-filled night sky. In this town, Vlad, now in clean clothes, walks through the snowy streets along with other townsfolk, heading towards a warmly lit building. Inside a shop, a magnificent longsword is displayed, its steel gleaming. Vlad gazes at it, a slight, captivated smile on his face, clearly admiring the weapon's craftsmanship. With his hands in his pockets, Vlad maintains a cool and confident smile. His smile fades as he turns his head, his expression becoming more serious and pensive as he looks towards something off-screen. Suddenly, a young woman with fiery red hair and an annoyed expression appears. It's Gemina, and she seems to be scolding someone. Vlad looks taken aback, his eyes wide with surprise at her sudden appearance or words. Gemina herself looks startled, her mouth agape as if she's just seen something shocking. She looks around frantically, her expression filled with worry, while Vlad watches her with concern. Her eyes widen in sheer panic as she lets out a silent gasp, fixated on something that clearly terrifies her. Vlad sweats, his gaze fixed and serious as he watches the unfolding situation, sharing Gemina's concern. The cause of their alarm is revealed. A person is engulfed in crackling dark energy, a strange and dangerous power. Gemina points a finger, shouting a frantic warning about the dangerous display of power they just witnessed. She turns to Vlad, her arms crossed as she continues her lecture, clearly worried about the consequences of his power. She explains the danger therein, emphasizing that with the new bishop in town, any strange occurrences could get them into serious trouble. Her gaze shifts to the expensive sword hanging on the wall, the very one Vlad was admiring, as she continues to make her point. Gemina turns back to him, her expression a mix of frustration and pleading as she tries to reason with him. Vlad listens intently as Gemina lays out her concerns, his expression turning serious as he weighs the gravity of her warning. But as her words sink in, his serious demeanor dissolves into a sly, confident smirk, hinting that her warning has sparked not fear, but a bold idea. Gemina can only look on with a worried tear in her eye, while Vlad maintains his confident, almost arrogant smirk. As the bell on the shop door jingles, the two of them turn to leave. Vlad looks determined, while Gemina remains anxious. But before they can get away, the old blacksmith bursts out from his workshop, looking absolutely furious and shouting at them to stop. The blacksmith confronts them, his face contorted in anger. Vlad looks slightly taken aback by his rage, while Gemina stands with her arms crossed. Seething with fury, the blacksmith clenches his fist, telling them that he doesn't sell swords to beggars from the slums. Gemina is shocked by his harsh words, retorting that his sword is too expensive anyway and that he is being rude. His face red with anger, the blacksmith yells at them to get out of his sight immediately. Before Gemina can escalate the argument, Vlad quickly grabs her by the hair to shut her up, much to her angry surprise. Vlad starts dragging her away as she protests loudly, asking if she said anything wrong. He tells her to be quiet while the blacksmith continues to shout insults at them. As Vlad pulls the struggling Gemina away, the blacksmith watches them go, still fuming from the confrontation. The scene briefly flashes back to a memory from their childhood, where an older boy shelters a young Vlad and Gemina under a single blanket in the harsh, cold snow. Back in the present, the blacksmith's anger subsides slightly as he watches the two disappear down the street. He looks up at the sky, a thoughtful expression replacing his anger, as he reconsiders the encounter. His mind seems to be in a whirl, contemplating what just happened. He walks back into his smithy and looks down at the footprints they left behind, a new idea forming in his mind. With newfound resolve, he firmly grips the hilt of a different sword. The blacksmith inspects the simple, unadorned blade. It's not a masterpiece, but a sturdy, practical weapon. A close-up reveals the raw, unfinished quality of the steel, a stark contrast to the polished sword from before. Meanwhile, Vlad and Gemina walk through the dark, narrow streets of the slum. Vlad strides forward with purpose, while Gemina follows, still looking concerned. This is the great city of Shoera, the center of all northern logistics, and home to the prestigious house of Bayezid. But beneath such brilliance, there is always a shadow hidden from the light, a place where the city's unwanted gather. The scene shifts to a tavern, its sign bearing the silhouette of a woman with a rose in her hair. Inside, the tavern is lively and crowded, filled with rowdy patrons drinking and carousing. But the boisterous atmosphere is broken by a commotion. A large, brutish mercenary is seen dragging a terrified woman up the stairs. From the upper floor, the mercenary bellows down at the crowd, hurling insults and threats. He viciously drags the helpless woman by her hair across the floor, her attempts to struggle proving completely useless against his brute strength. The mercenary roars, complaining that as a 20-year veteran, he feels insulted to have been sold timer candles that don't even work as advertised. Just then, Vlad appears, holding a crate filled with the timer candles. The angry mercenary immediately turns his attention to him, the source of his frustration. The brute points an accusatory finger at Vlad, who remains perfectly calm and unfazed by the confrontation. Vlad maintains a cold, indifferent expression, looking down on the man causing a scene. The mercenary, infuriated by Vlad's lack of reaction, continues to shout and rage. Vlad's eyes begin to glow with a menacing blue light, a sign that his patience is wearing thin. The mercenary, completely unaware of the danger, bellows at Vlad, demanding a refund. Vlad lets out a bored sigh, as if dealing with such loud-mouthed thugs is nothing more than a tiresome chore. His nonchalant attitude only serves to further enrage the mercenary, whose face contorts with pure fury. Vlad's expression finally hardens, his glowing eyes carrying a cold, intimidating weight as he stares down his opponent. Ignoring the threats, Vlad calmly takes out one of the timer candles and proposes a wager, gesturing towards the large clock in the tavern. He holds up the candle with a smug grin, explaining that if the candle burns out in less than 5 minutes, the mercenary can have the woman. The mercenary scoffs at the proposition, infuriated that this young brat is trying to make a fool out of him. But as Vlad's eyes flare with an intense blue light, he finishes his terms. If the candle lasts for 5 minutes, the mercenary will pay the price. The brute is momentarily stunned into silence, sweating as he feels the immense pressure emanating from Vlad's cold, piercing gaze. Overwhelmed by his powerful aura, the mercenary can only stammer, shocked that a mere brat could be so intimidating. Having accepted the challenge, Vlad calmly strikes a match to light the candle. He kneels down and lights the wick of the candle he placed on the floor, officially starting the 5-minute timer. The mercenary watches with a tense and angry glare, eager to see the boy fail and get what's coming to him. With the bet made, Vlad stands with his arms crossed, coolly watching the candle as the mercenary keeps his grip on the terrified woman. The poor woman can only watch in terror, tears streaming down her face as her fate is decided by a burning candle. The entire tavern watches from below, the patrons silent as they observe the tense standoff on the second floor. All eyes are on the flickering flame. Vlad watches with an unnerving calm, his blue eyes glowing as he anticipates the outcome of his wager. But just moments after being lit, the flame sputters for a second before extinguishing completely, leaving behind only a thin wisp of smoke. The mercenary stares in disbelief. The candle went out in seconds, but the clock on the wall has barely moved. He realizes he's been completely duped. His face contorts with rage as he realizes the brat scammed him in front of the entire tavern. He lunges forward to attack, but Vlad is quicker, brutally smashing a wooden rod across the man's face. Before the brute can recover, Vlad follows up with a powerful knee strike, driving the air from his lungs. With blood splattering, Vlad's eyes glow with cold fury as he presses his assault. He leaps into the air, preparing a devastating kick to finish the fight. The kick lands squarely on the mercenary's side, the impact echoing through the room. The massive man is sent crashing to the floor, completely defeated and sprawled out at Vlad's feet. Vlad casually turns away, warning the cowering man on the floor not to cause trouble again. He gives the defeated mercenary one last cold, threatening glare with his glowing blue eyes. Clutching his now bleeding nose, the mercenary looks up in pure terror, realizing he picked a fight with the wrong person. But Vlad isn't finished. He swiftly brings the rod down again, delivering another crushing blow. His face is a mask of ruthless efficiency as he continues to beat the man who dared to challenge him. The brutal sounds of the beating echo from the tavern into the night, as Vlad's cold voice commands the scum to pipe down. The scene transitions to the next day, showing the exterior of the tavern in the peaceful morning light, a grand castle visible in the background. Inside, someone is cutting into a sausage, enjoying a hearty meal. It's Vlad, who seems to be anxiously recounting the events to a companion. His companion is Jorge, a large, armored man with a gray beard, who calmly listens while eating his meal. As Vlad tells his story, the scene briefly cuts to a woman screaming in terror. Vlad continues his conversation with Jorge, explaining the details of the previous night's incident. Later, Vlad is at the bar, where he's approached by a woman who asks if he was the one behind the timer candle incident. Vlad is visibly startled, surprised that she knows about his involvement. The woman turns around, revealing herself to be a beautiful lady with a captivating smile, surrounded by an aura of roses. This is the infamous Madame Marcella of the Roses Smile. It turns out Vlad and Jorge are in her establishment, sitting at her bar as she cheerfully confirms she orchestrated the whole thing. The sound of creaking footsteps on a wooden staircase interrupts the conversation, signaling that someone is approaching. Vlad descends the stairs into a dimly lit back room, his hands in his pockets. He is met by a man with a smirking face and an earring, who seems to have been waiting for him. The man is flanked by his crew of thugs, who all look on with sly grins. The leader of the thugs slings an overly friendly arm around Vlad, who is visibly unamused by the gesture. Vlad's eyes glow with irritation, clearly annoyed at being summoned for what he deems a trivial matter. Sensing Vlad's displeasure, the thug leader nervously tries to explain why he called for him. The man's sly grin returns as he begins to detail the situation. Vlad listens with a cold, impatient expression, his glowing eyes fixed on the man. With a confident gesture, the thug leader explains the trouble one of their own has gotten into. The scene is a dusty storage room, filled with crates and barrels, the perfect place for a discreet meeting. The man then presents a young boy with a bruised and battered face, grabbing him by the hair. This is Ned, a young pickpocket. Vlad now stands before the entire group, looking down at the kneeling and terrified Ned, who has clearly been caught and beaten. With a grimace, Vlad asks what the problem is, annoyed that his time is being wasted. The thug leader smugly explains that Ned got himself caught while trying to pickpocket someone. Vlad lets out an exasperated sigh, questioning why he was bothered with something so insignificant. He tosses a bag of coins onto the floor to cover the boy's debt, telling him to get lost. Ned flinches in terror, startled by the sudden resolution. With the matter settled, Vlad dismisses the thugs and the boy with an impatient wave of his hand. The thugs look pleased with the outcome, happily accepting the deal as they lead the boy away. The chapter closes with a final, lingering shot of Vlad's glowing blue eye, hinting at the depth of his power and the true nature of his role in this dark underworld. A young boy, Ned, looks on with a terrified expression, his face bruised and swollen. A young man with striking blue eyes and blonde hair, Vlad, looks down with a calm yet imposing demeanor. Ned looks down, his fear turning to shame as he touches his bruised face. Vlad speaks to the boy, his expression unreadable, asserting a point with a hand gesture. Having been helped, Ned thanks Vlad with a shy smile as Vlad walks away. After the encounter, Vlad pauses for a moment, a shadow of concern crossing his face as he touches his neck. The scene transitions to a bustling port city under a bright, clear sky, with ships and sailors filling the harbor. Inside an office, a hand is shown diligently writing in a ledger with a fountain pen. The writer is revealed to be Harbin, a member of the whale hunter Captain Hoover's family, who greets someone with a calm smile. A painful memory flashes through Vlad's mind, a chaotic scene from his childhood of having his finger and ankle brutally cut. Back in the present, Vlad sits across from Harbin, engaged in a serious conversation. Harbin explains the situation, gesturing as he speaks, while Vlad listens intently from across the large desk. Vlad's expression is one of shock and concern as he processes the information Harbin is giving him. Harbin leans forward, his expression becoming more intense as he delivers a warning. A close-up shows Vlad's piercing blue eyes, filled with resolve. As Vlad absorbs the gravity of the situation, he speaks with a determined tone. Harbin listens to Vlad's response, his own expression serious and focused. Harbin's eyes gleam as he concludes his explanation, emphasizing the danger of the situation. Harbin begins to describe the city's criminal underworld, a chaotic mess of violent individuals clashing with one another. He mentions the first major figure, a knightly man known as Jorge, the prostitute's knight, who ruthlessly cuts down his foes. Next, he describes two other crime lords, a sinister man called Black Bear, the pig butcher, and the notorious whale hunter, Captain Hoover. Harbin warns that these men are driven by greed, with one in particular, a man with a hook hand, being obsessed with money. Having heard of the dangers, Vlad's face hardens, his glowing blue eyes showing a cold determination. The scene shifts to a crowded tavern. Vlad stands amidst the rabble, his expression hardening as he realizes Harbin's warning has become his immediate reality. Just like now, as if summoned by the thought, a large, intimidating man with a hook for a hand steps forward, a smirk on his face. This is the infamous money grubber, One-Armed Jack. Vlad stares forward, his blue eyes glowing with a cold, intense light as he assesses the situation in the tavern. Across from him, Jack, the money grubber, lets out a menacing, toothy grin, his eyes glinting with malice in the shadows. Jack looms over Vlad, who is sitting calmly at a table with a crate full of the candles he sells. One of Jack's men, an aggressive ruffian with a scar on his face, steps forward and points accusingly at Vlad. Vlad looks up, his glowing eyes narrowing slightly, unfazed by the ruffian's aggressive posture. The confrontation continues, with the ruffian growing more agitated by Vlad's calm demeanor. The ruffian snarls, his patience clearly wearing thin as he continues to shout at the silent Vlad. Losing his temper completely, the ruffian raises his fist and brings it down, not on Vlad, but on his crate of candles. Vlad watches impassively as the candles, his livelihood, are sent flying from the shattered crate. The ruffian sneers, satisfied with the destruction he has caused. The white candles scatter across the floor, broken and ruined. A hush falls over the tavern. Jack's crew watches the scene unfold, while other patrons look on in tense silence. A group of women in the tavern watch with expressions of shock and fear. The other tavern patrons are stunned, one man drooling in a stupor, unable to comprehend the sudden violence. Among the onlookers is Gemina, a young woman with red hair, who covers her mouth in shock and concern for Vlad. Ignoring the crowd, Vlad calmly kneels down, confusing the ruffian who expected a different reaction. The ruffian grits his teeth, his neck veins popping, as a strange tension fills the air. As the ruffian stands over him, Vlad doesn't cower. Instead, he begins to pick up the pieces of his broken crate. Sweat drips down the ruffian's face as he stares down, bewildered by Vlad's unnervingly calm actions. Vlad looks up from the floor, a cold, confident smirk on his face as his eyes glow intensely. Enraged by Vlad's defiance, the ruffian's face contorts with anger, a vein throbbing on his forehead. The ruffian lunges forward, launching a powerful kick aimed directly at Vlad. Vlad, still on one knee, calmly watches the incoming attack, showing no signs of fear. With lightning speed, Vlad shifts his body, gripping a piece of broken wood to use as a makeshift weapon, preparing to meet the ruffian's attack head-on. The ruffian continues his kick, unaware that Vlad is now armed and ready to counter. The ruffian's kick is blocked by the wooden plank, the impact echoing with a loud crack. Vlad expertly maneuvers around the ruffian, creating a clean arc of motion as he prepares a counter-strike. With his eyes glowing, Vlad brings the makeshift club up with incredible force. He lands a devastating blow directly to the ruffian's throat, who cries out in agony. The women in the tavern gasp in horror, their faces pale with shock at the sudden, brutal violence. The rest of the tavern patrons are equally stunned. Jack's men look on with grim anger, while others stare with mouths agape. In stark contrast to the shocked crowd, Jack watches the scene unfold with a cold, unblinking, and intrigued expression. A close-up shows Vlad's glowing blue eyes, cold and focused after delivering the decisive blow. The defeated ruffian lies on the ground as Vlad stands over him, establishing his dominance. Enraged, Jack's other men surge forward, brandishing their weapons and shouting, ready to avenge their fallen comrade. But with a single word, "Stop!" and a raised hook, Jack commands his crew to halt. Jack's men freeze in place, caught in their forward momentum by their boss's undeniable authority. Jack steps forward, a smirk playing on his lips as he inspects his hook, clearly impressed by Vlad's display. Vlad replies with a cool, confident smirk of his own, unafraid of the powerful slum boss. Jack throws his head back and lets out a hearty laugh, thoroughly amused by Vlad's skill and audacity. The laughter stops. Jack leans in, his eyes glowing red with intensity, and begins to make Vlad an offer. A close-up of Jack's face shows his sinister, toothy grin and glowing red eyes, a mix of amusement and predatory intent. Vlad listens to the offer, his own glowing blue eyes remaining steady and unreadable. Just as Jack makes his proposition, the tavern door opens and a new, heavily armed group enters. At the head of the group is a man in shining armor with a dignified, knightly presence. This is Jorge, another one of the slum's powerful bosses. Jack turns to face the newcomers, his expression shifting to a sly, challenging grin. Jorge looks down, his expression unreadable, assessing the situation between Jack and Vlad. A reflection in the polished surface of Jack's hook shows Jorge and his men, symbolizing the clash of powers. A close-up on Jorge reveals his calm, yet sharp and calculating green eyes, sizing up his rival, Jack, and the surprising young man who caused the commotion. Jack returns the stare with a sinister smile and glowing red eyes. The tense standoff between the two powerful slum bosses finally concludes, with either side making a move. With the standoff over, Jack walks away with his men, leaving Jorge's knights to stand guard as Vlad tends to the fallen ruffian. Vlad lets out a sigh of frustration, the adrenaline fading as the reality of the situation sets in. He looks down at his ruined livelihood, a crate full of shattered, unsellable candles. Vlad's expression hardens as he gazes at the mess, contemplating his next move. As Jack and his crew head for the exit, they pass by Vlad one last time. Jack flashes a confident, knowing smile, addressing Vlad directly. He laughs, then pats a bewildered Vlad on the shoulder. Pleased with the outcome, Jack flicks a single, gleaming gold coin into the air as a sign of his recruitment offer. The coin lands perfectly in his hand, a symbol of the wealth he is offering. Vlad catches the coin and examines it, his expression thoughtful as he weighs the offer. With a final, parting smile, Jack turns to leave, confident that Vlad will join him. Jack and his large crew exit the tavern, leaving a significant power vacuum in their wake. Vlad watches them go, his gaze fixed on the departing figures as he considers his future. From a balcony above, the red-haired woman, Gemina, calls out to Vlad, her voice filled with concern. Gemina gestures for Vlad to come up, clearly wanting to talk to him away from the tension of the tavern floor. Later, the tavern is quieter. Vlad is now sitting at the bar, having a private conversation with the nightly boss, Jorge. Vlad looks up, a question on his face, as he listens to Jorge's proposition. Jorge presents Vlad with a sharp, well-made dagger, explaining that it is for a mission he needs him to undertake. Jorge's expression is stern and serious, emphasizing the gravity of the task ahead. Vlad's gaze is fixed and determined, his glowing eyes reflecting his focus as he accepts the new challenge. Jorge explains the political situation, mentioning a conversation with a crying woman named Marcela, hinting at the complex web of relationships in the slum. He describes another group in the slum, a faction that remains neutral but is wary of any shifts in power. Jorge explains that a direct conflict between him and Jack would be a catastrophe, as illustrated by the shattered images of them both. Having heard the explanation, Vlad sits with Jorge at the bar and asks him directly, "Then, what do I do?" Jorge thoughtfully strokes his beard, pondering Vlad's crucial question and formulating a plan. Vlad listens intently, his expression serious as he takes in the information. Jorge's eyes narrow as he explains the delicate balance of power, his voice low and serious. He warns that Jack may have many men, but they are nothing more than a mob with glowing red eyes, lacking true strength. Jorge, surrounded by an aura of fire, compares them to a flock of sheep that cannot stand against a true wolf like a knight. He emphasizes his point by mentioning the new mercenary knight that Jack has hired, a truly formidable opponent. As their meeting concludes, Jorge gives Vlad his final instructions. Vlad is left stunned and speechless by the weight of the mission assigned to him. Later, Vlad reflects on the story of Harbin, a man who overcame his physical limitations through pure intellect and diligence, finding inspiration in his resolve. Inspired, Vlad is shown training alone in a desolate yard, practicing his swordsmanship with a simple wooden stick. His eyes glow with intense focus as he swings the stick, pouring all of his concentration into the movement. He stands alone amidst the rubble of the city, lost in his training. But his practice is interrupted by an internal struggle, a bead of sweat running down his face as he fights against a voice in his head. He remembers the event from a month ago, being struck by a black thunderbolt, which caused him to hear the whispers of the devils whenever he wields a weapon. He lets out a sound of frustration, annoyed by the constant demonic whispers that plague his mind. Shaking his head, Vlad tries to dismiss the voices and regain his focus on the city before him. He closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and centers himself, preparing to overcome the internal distraction. His eyes snap open, burning with a renewed, fierce blue light, his resolve hardened. Focusing all his power and will, he tightens his grip and commands himself to narrow his focus. He brings the simple stick down in a powerful, precise swing, channeling all his energy into the single strike. As the swing connects, Vlad's eyes widen in shock and realization. The movement was more than a simple swing. It was the way of the sword. The MC is contemplating if what he did now was merely just a swing while dripping sweat. The MC thinks to himself that this is the way of the sword and how it's supposed to be, with a dark look with his shining blade reflecting. Seems like it's an image of himself in the future maybe, but what you guys think, comment down below and like and subscribe. Peace out.